All right, today we're going to be looking at a review of working with basic percents. So when we're doing basic percents means we're finding just a percent of a number or a percent of an amount of money. So solving for basic percents of tells you to multiply. So for instance, these ones down here, we're going to be finding like what is 65% of 40. Well, the of is telling me I'm going to need to multiply here. Before I can multiply, I have to remember to change the percent to a decimal. So you'll remember, hopefully from last year, that if I have something like 65%, I need to do 65 over 100, which is a fraction, which can be turned into the decimal 65 hundredths. I think of it as 65% is like 65 cents. That was how I would write it as a decimal. Some of the harder ones we might have are like 3%, which is 3 divided by 100, which is like 3 cents. Or if I have something that is smaller and has a decimal, for instance, 4.25% would be 4.25 over 100 or divided by 100. And it can start to look a little strange as a decimal. It's like 4 25 hundredths of a cent, if you want to think of it that way. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm then going to take that decimal and I am going to multiply it times my number. So this first one right here, I'm going to do 65% of 40. So of, I always tell my kids to cross it out with an X to remind me that I need to multiply it. So I'm going to do 65% times 40. I need to change that into that decimal first. I can also think of it as moving the decimal place 2 places. And 65% of 40 is 26. So my answer is 26. Our next one here says 13% of 17. So I'm going to do 13% times 75, rather not 17. So that would be like 13 cents or 13 hundredths times 75, which gets me 9 75 hundredths. And it's okay to have the decimal in your answer. I know some kids that kind of makes them nervous, but it's all right. This one is 250%. So once again, I'm going to multiply. When I do something over 100%, I'm going to end up with a whole number left over. And I can write that as 2.50 or 2.5, so I can write that either way, which gives us the answer of 212.5. And you also notice when you multiply by a percent bigger than 100% that your answer ends up being bigger than your original number. Our next one here says a car company found that 3% of all headlights are defective after 2 months. If they recently received a shipment of 1,350 headlights, approximately how many of the headlights may be defective? So 3% of the 1,350 headlights are going to be defective after 2 months. So I'm finding 3% of that. Which means that 40.5, or approximately 40.5 of the headlights will be defective. Now we're going to use this skill to help us calculate tax, tip, and discount. So a discount is a percentage off a list price that you don't have to pay. I'm sure we know what coupons and discounts are. And that's also known as a sale. So we'll be looking for the sale price. So a sale price is after that discount has been applied. And that means that's the amount that you actually pay after you take off the coupon. So there's 2 different ways I can calculate this. And one of them is easier than the other, I feel. But it just depends on what method your head wraps around more easily. So the first method, I'm going to change the percent to a decimal. just like I did above, and then multiply. And this finds how much money you are saving. You subtract your answer from the original to find the sale price, and then you repeat that process for multiple discounts. So if I have like a 20% off and a 30% off coupon, that's not the same as having a 50% off coupon. So I can't combine them. I have to take them each individually. The other method that I think is easier is I find the percentage that I'm actually paying. So say something is 20% off. Up here I would do 20% of the number, then I would subtract that from the original number to find my answer. If I do it this way, I would do 100 minus 20 and find out that I'm paying 80% of it. So I'm going to change the percent to a decimal and multiply. When I do it this way, I don't have to subtract at the end. I can just repeat as necessary. So I'm going to show both ways down here to do the same prompts. I'm going to use both methods. So method number one says that I need to find 30%, because it says 30% off of $15, so 30% of $15. Which is $4.50. Please don't tell me that it is $4.5. I then have to do $15 minus $4.50 because this is my original price. This is my discount in dollars. And this is going to be down here my sale price. In other words, the reduced price that I actually pay. So this is going to be $10.50. In method two, when I start, I know that it's 30% off, so I'm going to do 100 minus 30, which is 70%. So I need to find 70% of $15. So 0.70 times 15, and I get $10.50. So you can see that we end up with the same answer. There's just two very different methods of doing it. A few more examples on the back here. It says Jane bought a pair of jeans that were on sale for 25% off. The original price of the jeans was $40. What was the final price of the jeans? So if I need to find in method one, I would find 25% of 40. Now if you don't like way one and you're like, okay, I totally get way two, you can skip this video ahead and just watch method two, or try it and skip ahead and see if you got the right answer. So I'm going to find 25% of 40, which is $10, and then I would do 40 minus 10 to find out that I'm going to pay $30. If I do method two, I just say 100 minus 25 is 75%. So 0.75 times 40, which is $30. James wants to buy a DS. The DS is $300, but is marked off 15%. What is the price of the DS? So once again, if I do method one, I'm going to find 15% of $300. So that's $45, and then I would do minus the original price minus the discount in dollars, and I would get $255. Method two, I would find that I'm paying 85% of that original cost, which means that I am paying $255. So once again, same answer, two different ways of doing it. So with discounts, we subtract. With taxes and tips, we are going to add on because there's something we have to pay in addition to what we are already paying. So sales tax, for instance, and tips are going to be down here. We're going to add them on. So it says the bill for a family dinner is $55. You want to leave a 20% tip. What was the total bill? So method number 1, I would do 20% of 55, which is $11. And then I would have to add the $11 on to find out that my total bill is $166. Now method 2, when it was a discount, we subtracted, but since this is something I'm adding on, in method 2, I add it on, and so I'm working with 120%. So I want 120% of 55, which in one step then will give me $66 for the total bill. Number 2 here, the sales tax is 6.5%. If you buy a television for $500, what will your total price be? So that means I want 6.5% of $500. Make sure you get that, make sure you get that extra 0 in there, or you'll end up with an answer that's way off, much, much bigger than what you should have. It's going to move it over tenfold. So $32.50 in tax. So then I'm going to add $500 plus $32.50. And I find that it's going to cost me $532.50 to buy my TV. Method 2, I am going to add, to find out that I'm paying 106.5%, which I would write as 1.065, and I would multiply that times 500, and I would get the answer of $532.50 without having to add anything on at the end. This next one right here, the sales tax is 7%. I'm going to slide that down so we can still see what we did here. If you spend $60 on items, including tax, how much should you spend? So 7% of 60 which is $4.20. When I add on the $4.26, it gives me a total of $64.20. Method number 2, I would just add that to the 100%. And in one step, I will get $64.20. Our last example here says you go to Target and your total comes to $35. I don't know if I've ever spent that little amount at Target. You got to pay 7% tax. And it says, what is your total with tax? Use method 1 to solve your problem. You could also use method 2. So 7% of 35, which is 0.07 times 35, which is 5. $2.45. I'm going to add that on, and I'm going to get $37.45. So this amount right here is the tax, and then that is my total with tax. When I do method 2, I don't see this amount of tax because I skip right to the total. So if you're ever doing a problem and it wants to know how much tax, you're going to need to do method 1. But you can see there again that you can do it in one step. You're just not going to see the amount of tax that you have. Hopefully this was a good refresher for you. Let us know if you have any questions.